And that's just his. Is that just his way of saying they're a bad red zone team? I mean, because that makes sense.
So why can't you say, hey, they're a bad red zone team, guys?
Well, listen.
No, Booger McFarland is one of the dumbest SOBs I've heard on a broadcast team. And Jason Witten looks like a godsend compared to Booger McFarland. Put him back on that stupid camera slide where he only talks 5 times a game like last year. I can't stand him. Put someone else on there. Joe Tessitore, I feel like, is speechless, and he talks a
Oh,
ton
I am laughing.
sometimes.
I laugh my ass off
It's
every time.
horrible.
Like, look, Dylan, I understand what you're saying. I didn't take like such great offense to it as Dave obviously did. He said much dumber
No, it's
shit than
game
me.
after game after
But
game after game with it.
he is a moron announcer. Like, he does say just continuously dumbass shit that makes no logical sense and makes no football sense at all. And he should know better, being a player that was pretty damn good and won 2 Super Bowls. But he's one of those people that's an awkward talker. Like, they're obviously, it's not that they're bad at
You mean
communication.
like Rob Gronkowski on
but when-
NFL Fox Sunday?
Yes, but when they start to communicate in a large setting, they get awkward and they get nervous, and that nervousness maybe doesn't show in like they're getting sweaty, but they just start saying just randomly dumb shit because they're nervous, and that's Booger McFarland. He's like out of his skis.
So
in this
bad.
job. It is bad, but I laugh every time he says something dumb because there was a guy that damn near begged them for the job, and it would have been his first job. He damn near begged them, and they basically were no. They gave it to Booger and Tessitore and McFarland, right? Or Witten.
Booger and McFarland? I didn't know those two different people.
Yeah, I know. They gave it to Booger, Witten, and Tessitore. And Witten actually was the one, Booger was going to do it, right? Witten was the one that they replaced him with. But I think if this guy would have been there, they would have got rid of Booger too, because he would have realized how much dumber he is. The funny thing is now he's on Thursday Night Football, and he's killing it. And the people he works with cannot stop raving about him on and off air. Like, it's Joe Thomas. There's
also another one.
Up.
Oh, the offensive tackle?
Yeah, from the Cleveland Browns.
Well, listen.
Have you heard him on Thursday Night Football preview show and post game? He's amazing.
A couple things go a long way in the business. One of them is entertainment. The other one is diversity. Okay,
Booger's not entertainment.
But
he's not entertaining.
I
have almost turned the TV off during a Packer game twice because he's talking.
Listen,
that's not entertaining. That's enraging, infuriating.
When you tune into every football game and see two white guys in the booth, eventually someone's going to say, "Hey, let's get Booger in here."
Joe Buck and Troy
No, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. Booger was still going to be there. It was Witten they gave the job to over Thomas. What I'm saying is I think they would have replaced Booger now to somebody else that was smarter, because they would have realized they needed to pair
There's
Joe
still
Thomas
someone available that I think would be amazing.
That was smart enough to keep up with him so that he didn't have to keep carrying the weight. Tessitore is there for the entertainment part, dude, because he doesn't know shit about football, but at least he doesn't try to pretend like he's some football savant. He's there for the color. The other guys are actually supposed to be there for their football knowledge.
Yeah, like Nance is the entertain. Romo is supposed to be that guy of the knowledge, and
it's also ESPN that we're talking about. It's not like they have a list and say, "Let's find the worst
There's
guy."
There's a guy
who
wanted to be on last year, and he would have been amazing. Pat McAfee.
Hey, McAfee would have been amazing. He's, I don't know why.
They put on Dennis Miller, for Christ's sakes, at the beginning of ESPN Monday Night Football.
That was before Disney owned them, though, Dave.
I don't care. Pat
McAfee is never getting on anything that Disney owned, period.
I need to go back to week 7 and listen to the game that Greg Olson called, because I'd love to hear that.
Yes, Greg. But he's still playing. The guy's an ageless wonder, so we'll never get to hear him announce. And then, on top of that, we'll probably hear Jason Witten again next year after he retires.
No, you know really who I think the Monday Night Booth should be, but he would never do it? And it would make Monday Night Football, like, awesome.
Stephen A. Smith.
No.
I hate you.
replace no, because I said he would never do it. And Stephen A, if offered, he might do it, but he would be terrible at it. But he might do it. No, I think he's just too old that he wouldn't do it. But he would make the booth awesome. Tom Jackson.
To hear Berman and Tom Jackson call a game would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be awesome for sure.
For real.
Can you hear
can you
a
imagine,
90-yard run? What?
Like the fact that, and
Just
honestly,
every long run and
the
pass.
fact that they haven't done something like that, like I know those guys are old, but like you just take everything off their plate and then tell them, and guess what? Now we're going to have you do the Blitz because we're just going to set up the Blitz studio right next to the Monday night thing. You're going to go over there, record that right after you're done, and you can go home.
They're not even on mainstream ESPN. They're on ESPN Plus.
I miss those.
That's it.
Two. There's certain people, Dillon, honestly, I think that if we have to, we need to put them on some like binary cyber like life support, because without them, football is going to be like empty.
Do you know who I think would also be a good booth? The guy that I love watching him on NFL Network just because he's a goofy talker, Charlie Casserly.
Yeah, he is. He's a goofball. He is for sure.
I think he would be good. I
would
love Casserly.
From Good Morning Football.
He does announcing. He's already on the pregame show for CBS, I believe.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Well, I've heard him. He called the game on Sunday I was listening to. That's what I was saying. He like when we're sitting here thinking of it, he would be a name that pops in my head that I think he would be good too. Like, and yeah, he already.
I think we should have a poll.
Burleson's great, actually. I would love to hear him and Kay Adams call a game.
I love Kyle Brandt and Peter Schrager.
Dude, that is my new favorite morning football show. Period.
Yes,
they do. They do an awesome job.
How underrated is Daryl Johnston at announcing? I love Daryl Johnston in the booth.
You know, that is one thing. There are a lot of good announcers.
The booth.
I don't know how the hell we even get into these things. How do we get into these things?
Because Booger McFarland pissed me off.
Oh yeah,
and he favored a defensive tackle getting a penalty on the Green Bay game.
Where the hell
on top
were
of
we
that,
in our show? Even before he started with this shit. This is Dave's fault.
We were okay. Two things. We were just wrapping up who called out this week, and another underrated announcer. I believe his name is Gus Johnson from college football. Love listening to that guy.
Oh, yeah,
super enthusiastic.
I miss John Lynch, except he's a GM now.
You guys want to get into a break or the waiver wire pickups for Week 13?
Waiver wire pickups for Monday Night Football broadcast.
Guys, Week 13, this is huge for your fantasy season. The last week of most people's regular season. If it's not the last week, you need to get out of that league because no one should be playing in Week 17. It's ridiculous. There's too many variables to try to, who's going to sit and who has this record and that. So Week 13 for most people, for most civilized people in the fantasy world, is the last week of the regular season. Guys, how do you feel about your playoff push so far? I believe the three of us are safe in the First and Goal Pod League to make the playoffs. How do you feel about your teams going in?
Right?
No, it's only 4 teams. Dave's out.
4 teams.
And
4 teams that don't make it, I believe.
No, it's 4 teams in the top. The rest are consolation brackets.
Yeah. You didn't set it up right, Dillon.
See? Improvements for next year. I got that backward.
So basically, Dave and I match up tonight or this week, and I am 7-5, and he is 6-5 or 5 or something. If
I'm
he
6-6.
But here's the deal.
Both y'all are 7-5.
But here's the deal. I beat you guys both on the first round of time, and so even if I lose to Dave, I think it's going to go to some tiebreaker scenarios from the algorithm, so I might be safe. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Dillon. I swear to God, if I'm not in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of players on the waiver wire.
Well, that's very, very sportsmanlike of you to say. But yeah, it's been a year. I honestly can't believe. Yeah, it's that time of year when you look back and you say, "Wow, seems like Week 1 was only yesterday." I had so much optimism for my not only my fantasy team, but my NFL team. And now things have either taken a turn for the worst, or you're barely hanging on, or you're cruising right into the playoffs, depending on who your team is. And you just got to enjoy the roller coaster that football is every single year. Because in sports like baseball and basketball, when you have 80 to 100 some odd games, and most of the games don't mean a thing, and you can lose, 20 games here and there, and it doesn't really matter. Football matters each and every single week. Injuries matter, variables that you can't account for. Is it going to be windy outside, and how does that affect the passing game? And is it snowing today? And who's got turf toe? And I just love football so much. I got to just get that out there before we get into the waiver wire. But hey, let's get into it. At quarterback,
we talk real love and passion for the game. I almost saw a tear start to come out of the corner of your eye. There's some real emotion coming from your side of the freaking screen here, man. That touched my heart just a little bit.
It's a beautiful sport, and to watch the way that it's changed for better and for worse since I first started watching it has been really interesting, and I'm excited and nervous to see how it goes in the next decade or so. But waiver wire quarterbacks, guys, getting into something a little bit more fun. We talked about Tannehill earlier. He's still only about 50 or so % owned in most leagues, going to Indianapolis this week, which isn't a plus matchup, but it's not the worst. We'll see. No one's a real target monster there in Tennessee. You can't really, as good as A.J. Brown can be, it's not like he's had consistent targets. Adam Humphries has not been the slot machine we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the year. Corey Davis, may have some sort of Devontae Parker-like resurgence next season. Certainly doesn't look like it's going to happen this season. And then you've got a banged-up Delaney Walker. Yet somehow Ryan Tannehill gets it done for you the last couple of weeks. So if you're hurting, if your guy's injured, if you're on, I believe all the buys are over, so that shouldn't be an issue. But
I
Ryan
hope the buys are over.
Yeah. The Eagles could use another bye if you ask me. Hopefully they get it at Miami this week. But Tannehill is a guy you can go on waivers. Another guy that I've had a love-hate relationship with because I tried to play him at Atlanta. Earlier in the season, he threw 4 interceptions and yet came back this past week and threw 3 touchdowns. That's Kyle Allen of the Carolina Panthers. He is taking on the Washington Redskins this week, who have been terrible on defense. Josh Norman was a healthy scratch this past week, so they have no confidence in their defense. We'll see what the players and how they react. And they managed to pick up a win still somehow this week in their matchup versus the Lions. I don't think that would have been the story if Matt Stafford was playing, but Kyle Allen is an interesting play versus the Redskins. Then you're moving on. It pains me to say it, but Ryan Fitzpatrick might be someone you can play at home against Philadelphia this week. Philadelphia's secondary has been improving since Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby have been fully healthy. But clearly, as I saw DK Metcalf get open for a few deep routes today where they weren't able to connect. But, had they been able to, DK Metcalf could have had a much bigger game just flying right by Jalen Mills on the outside. So it's still a work in progress in Philadelphia's secondary. You can do worse than Ryan Fitzpatrick. Nick Foles did not have a great week this past week, but faces the last ranked pass defense in the league in Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's see. You still got dangerous DJ Chark out there. D.D. Westbrook's available. Chris Conley. So hopefully Nick Foles, big stick Nick, can make something happen versus the Buccaneers at home this week. Might end up being a shootout because you're going to get the best and worst of Jameis Winston. And then 2 guys I want to bring up. Only because of the game that, it's not like Jimmy Garoppolo had a big game, but if Evan Ingram is healthy at home, Daniel Jones is an interesting play versus the Packers. I don't love it. I still think the Packers are a great defense in spite of what happened Sunday night. You saw Zadarius.
Defense.
Well, okay, they're not a great defense, but they are a formidable pass rush. The Smith brothers get after it. And Daniel Jones has been known to give the ball away from time to time. So he's a risky play, but a play nonetheless if you need a quarterback to plug in. And then Jared Goff, guys. He's been kind of a snooze these past couple of weeks, especially against Baltimore. But now on the road against Arizona, who just gives up points like it's going out of style. Jared Goff is an interesting play off the waiver wire at quarterback. Moving into the running back